Fantasy crew, I'm going to help you decide who you're going to pick as a replacement for Cleary if you do have trades left. And if you don't, you're still a legend for being here. Thank you very much. We're going to go through top price all the way through to lowest price. I think that you can buy someone that has enough value from either Cleary, or if you are making a second trade, like I might be personally, a different guy that you could grab that could really, really do well. So firstly, I'm just going to go through the holds and the sells, and then we're going to get into the guys that you could be purchasing there up top. So I just want to focus on the who's not here. And Cleary, obviously the big sell at 7.85%. So people do have trades left, which is good. Kale Iro at 1.06% is a mistake. He's been scoring really well. He was just ill last week along with Hazleton. So both those guys will be back, and Kale will continue to score well across those last three games and likely play each of those last three, which is the massive one there. Stranger 0.86. I think he's a good sell this week. Curran, I think you could easily hold as well, but I do think people had him in their mind as an easy sell. If you do think you can make a big upgrade from him to like a Carrigan or a Murray or something like that, I do understand, but I do have him as a hold in a nutshell there as well. Walshy, I think, is a good sell. Drinkwater, similar situation to Walsh, because Walsh could be back next week, but we don't know. But Drinky will be back next week. Played really well last time, but they do have a couple of tough games to finish. So I do understand that, but I do think using as a loop this week is the good play. Watson, there's a few people selling him at the moment. I think that he'll be really important for the last two games as well. So I do understand if you have sort of 3 or 4 trades that you could go him and Cleary. But I do think it has to be somewhere near the 4 range to be able to do that. Cotter, I think that he's a hold too, to be fair. I'm hoping for some couple of good games from him. They're going to need to play well, and he's going to need to play well for the Cows to win those last few tougher games. And we know that he's going to get involved in the base stats in that one. He won't be happy with his effort on the weekend, and he'll come back with a bang. He always does. Fainu, a really good sell this week, given he's got the bye next week. Getting ahead of the game is a good decision. Robson, feels like not ideal. There's not many people that own him. He hasn't been scoring his best, so I do understand him being more of a sell, given he has less chance, I think, of going nuts in that last few weeks, whereas someone like Drinkwater could have a cracking game. Hands there at -2.5, minus 0.25 is an easy one to sell. Played really, really poorly last week. Could be a guy that you do start looping as well, but if you want to sell him, that's fine. Tommy Tillau could be held or sold if Tommy's out, so he could be easily looped. Madison not there, I think you sell him. Chanel, same deal. And then Blaze Talangi. They do play the Tigers in the last game, I believe, so he's someone that you could easily hold for that week, but probably not play him this week, would be the thoughts there on that one. In terms of the people that are being bought, Eli Gatoa, a little bit worried about resting, but I think he's going to be fine. Just remember he did score pretty poorly before last week with that double against the Panthers there. But everyone else in this list are guys that I will be talking about, apart from Jerome Hughes, given I think he's a definite resting candidate next week. Or if not next week, then round 27 when they travel to, they got North Queensland and then they got Brisbane in the final game. So pretty cool. But yeah, everyone else I'm going to talk about in this next part of the video. So let's go straight to Joey Manu, actually, who I didn't pop in there, but he's the cheapest one. I was scrolling down the list, and of course I didn't get down to 527 at Joey Manu, which is just wild. But the last 3 weeks, given he's missed a bunch of games, I do think there's a higher chance that he does play the last 3 games there and not rest next week. I think they'll rest a few in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure if Manu's going to be that guy, but he did have a bit of a slow sort of run here, and he hasn't hit 50, unfortunately, since round 12. So that's where the risk in there lies with him. He also hasn't scored a try since that round 12 clash. So if you think he's due for a try here against the Titans or Canberra or the Bunnies, a dual position 527 guy is a really nice replacement from a Fainu or something like that if you do have the necessary amount of trades available there on that one. Damon Cook, let's get into the expensive guys now. And Cookie, surprisingly, is the most expensive available player at the moment, which is pretty crazy. You've got him ahead of Isaiah Yeo. Scratch that. Barnett is the most expensive guy, but we'll start there with Damien Cook anyway. At 815k, he's had a terrific 5-game stretch there. 79, 45, 95, 41, and then a 69 there to boot with that try for the first time since round 15. But it's good to see that he can do it in all different ways. And unfortunately for him, sometimes he does get moved out to the centers or to other positions, and that happened both in round 20 and 21. And the last 3 weeks there, he's been much more situated in the middle of the park where he can get those tackle numbers and sort himself out, which is great. But to pick up just the line break in that 95 in round 22 and the one try saver shows that he can do it across the board in all facets. And that's why he went low in the game before, because it was the first time in a good while where he went under 50 meters gained. And every time he goes over 50 meters gained, he usually scores at least over 45. So that's what you're looking for with Cook. You're buying him at 58. I think you're hoping for somewhere near that over the last 3 weeks. He's pretty well half owned at this point in the top 1,000, top 5,000, and a few more in the top 100. Makes sense because he's been absolutely dominant, but a really cool guy to throw in if you think that he can do well this week, especially against the Knights. But I think it's going to be more on the tackling side, and hopefully he can run a bit against Penrith and Roosters. But I'm not too excited about those final 2 games compared to what it has been and the run he has been on there in recent history, because the game that he did go low out of all these games here in recent history was against the Melbourne side, who are a really good team. So keep that in mind. Isaiah Yeo, best captaincy option of the week. In the private group this week, I put my captaincy rankings, and that's something that's going to be a regular thing as of next year. So if you are interested in that private group side, there'll be lots of exclusive stuff in there from next year as it's all growing now. So thank you to everyone for being a part of it and for showing interest in it, saying that they're going to be around next year, which is awesome. But Isaiah Yeo, I've got him as number 1 there. And then I've got 9 other guys on that list as well. And Isaiah Yeo is the safety guy this week. If you are captaining him, awesome. If you haven't bought him yet, like myself, do you buy him now? There's a very, very high chance I think he rests in one of these last 3 weeks. Likely to be next week, could be against the Titans in round 27. If that's the case, maybe so be it, because he scores so well and he's obviously going to be worth it. If he can get that 70 plus like he did last week with the 82 and in round 21, then he's awesome. But if you get him at the sort of 57, 58, it's still exactly where he's priced at, and that will be a really good target this week for you. So he's a very meat and potatoes pick, but a safety great pick at that. You're not worried about him going under 50, that's for sure. Dylan Edwards, we saw what he's been able to do without Nathan Cleary, and it scores 60 plus, and pretty much happened every game apart from a few where he got 57 and 58. So he's a really fun captaincy option as well, and a potentially a good bring in with a small chance of resting as well, given he's missed some games. I'm not sure if he will take a rest in that final few. He'll want to get up to speed and get his fitness right and everything like that as well. So Edwards, a really good pick that has a little bit of volatility for sure, but for the most part this year, you don't see that. We did see it last year in the back end, but it hasn't happened this year. And especially with the goal kicking returning to his boot, he should be sweet to continue scoring well. And he has Canberra, Rabbitohs and Titans, which is a terrific run there, just as good as the Roosters there. DCE, a lot of people are going to pick up Daly this week. The only issue I'm seeing with him is the fact that the kicking has gone by the wayside. 224 and 245 is recent too. And in round 21 against the Roosters, he picked up 620, had the goal kicking as well as scored a try and picked up a 78. So if there's any world where he gets back up into the 400s, 500s, there's that extra 5 or so points. And we know this week against Tigers it might not come, but hopefully for him there's some attacking stats. Maybe a pass to Kawatu or out the back to Garrick would be cool on my front over these next few weeks there. It's Tigers this one. Hopefully some attacking stats and then hopefully some good base against the Dogs and Cronulla. But they are going left to Brooks to kick a little bit more. So keep that in mind with Daly. But that's the big reason why he's the target this week, I think, is the fact that they play the Tigers. And it could definitely spread around the ball and him not score super well, but he could also go nuts and score an 80, 90, 100, right? That's the big thing there. Colin Matangi. The reason why we were excited about him last week was because he was playing on the edge against the Tigers. This week, he comes up against Newcastle, which, he has not the easiest task, not the hardest task either. Sorry, not the easiest task, I should say, either, with Kaipi's Paul on his side. Would have been a little bit worse against Frizzell and Gagai and these types of guys, but for Keon, I think he's more on the hold side, especially coming up against Penrith and the Roosters in the next few weeks. He could score really well, and he has done for a good few months now, all the way since round 12. We got that 104. But since then, he's had that low of 26, but back on the edge now. We know he should be able to score close to 50, and I think it'll probably stick that way, maybe a tiny bit under, and priced at 54. I think you can get a little bit more value from other guys. And Tedesco is one of those players that is in the mix for being one of the best scorers in this last three rounds, and a decent captaincy option this week as well. But he has some volatility. We saw the 69 last week, and sandwiched in between that 62 is a 30 and a 29 and then a 97. So he has that chance to go big if you don't own him, but also a good chance to rest in the next few weeks as well. It's obviously all not confirmed. Guys like Tedesco, Crichton, all these players, because they missed a game in round 23 with a bye, maybe they don't take the rest in the next few weeks. Or maybe it's more the fact that they take a resting game. They play 67 minutes and get a spell. There's a lot of maybes coming out of my mouth right now, and that shows why it could just be a play of just going for the guy you want, the guy that you think that scores the best or will score the best, and just locking that in and not looking back. Because we know guys like Adam Fanua-Blake have a rest upcoming in round 27. So if you are the head-to-head guy, Adam Fanua-Blake has been supremely consistent over the last month and a half, which has been good. 65, 75, 67, into that 39 with less minutes, into 61 and 68 with those really nice mid to high 60-minute efforts there. And we know that when he has those big minutes, he does score really well. And price 54, he could definitely average 60 for the end of the season. Matt Burton, 743. The alternative to DCE, in my opinion. If you are needing a half, he's priced at 53 and he's scoring exactly that across his season. But it's the last few months that really stands out with 70, 67, 68, 44, 57, 51, and 71. You only see one try in here. You see a bunch of try assists at 5, and goal kicking has been up as well because they are scoring lots of points. The run here is Warriors into Manly into Cowboys, and I think he can still score really well. And if you're looking at those scores, he's up over a 60 average across that time, which is awesome because he has 4 scores above 67 and then a couple of slightly lower ones, but more in that sort of mid-50s as well. And I think he can get somewhere up closer to that 58 to 59, 60 range, and could be a guy at 743 that could end up being a better pick than DCE. It's just the fact that they play the Tigers this week and Burton plays the Warriors in the Sean Johnson Cup, basically the last game that he'll play at their home ground. So I wonder how that game ends up going out. But yeah, Burton, a very interesting one. Tarpany at 734. Do you go for him, or do you spend a little bit less and go for Carrigan, or go for Cam Murray? That's the big question mark there. And with Tarpany, obviously a lower one last week, he did get a bit of a spell. In the last 2 weeks, he's played 45 and 44 minutes. And last week, he just got taken off because they were down by 40. The week before included a sin bin. So it's hard to look at those last two and say that that's anything close to normal, because the weeks before that, he went mid-50s points into a 76. So he could definitely do that over the last 3. It is up against Penrith this week, though, into the Roosters and the Dragons, who are all top 8 teams, which is a tough little stretch. So probably avoid, in my opinion. Turbo, he's a really, really fun one this week. He is in sublime form right now, and you can just see it. He's gone 52-91 in that 32 against the Roosters, so a tougher clash, but 78 and 57 his last few. And if you're talking Supercoach, he's one of the premier guys to own this week against the Tigers. I do think in fantasy, though, you're buying him for this week, and then you're probably expecting 45 average over the last 2 weeks, to be fair, if they're not resting players. So this week, you're hoping for 70 plus against the Tigers, and then hopefully 40 odd from there, and then you get a high 50s average. That'd be the goal if you're buying Turbo, and a really solid captaincy option as well. Little at 726, the alternate option to Damien Cook, if you think that he can have a nice few games there against Cronulla, Parramatta and Canberra, which he definitely could, and he could definitely score some tries or get involved on that side of the ball in those weeks. And the last few there, 75 and 67, just that blip of 36 in between, a tremendous amount of high 50s plus games there, and then that 147 was the only lower one there. So Little is in sublime form. He's the point of difference type of player, which I'm seeing a few people own in the top ranks there for sure, and he's doing a cracking job for him. Paddy at 707k, one of the premier captaincy options of the week there as well. And we mentioned last week that without Haas, he's absolutely terrific. He usually plays a tremendous amount of minutes there. 74.6 is the average, and he hits an average of 63.7 across that time. And if you're just looking at this season alone, it is a 66 average in games that he's played lock without Payne Haas. So that's where he becomes one of the best options at the moment. And he picked up a try assist last week to boot, but media's gain goes up for him Tackle's in a really good spot at 40.5, and he just gets involved and tries to help out the side. Plays Parramatta, Dolphins, and Melbourne, so some really nice matchups. So either get some attacking stats or just to play good minutes and help the Broncos get a win. And they're not mathematically out of the 8 either, so keep that in mind for Paddy Carrigan. All right, one that's a little bit more risky is that of Ben Hunt. So last week he went 70, but the week before was 40. He has 62 sandwiched in between, a 45 there. So a little bit up and down for sure, but someone that could definitely do well for you in two. I think at least 2 of the last 3 games could probably go 60 plus, but he might go a 40 in the other, and that gets him somewhere close to a 50, 54 type of average there with Ben. So if you like him, if you like the Dragons, I think there's worse players you can jump on for sure at that price point. But Cam McInnes at $6.99 now. A terrific game last week, and I do expect his minutes to drop this week. He's gone 73 into 85 the last 2 weeks, and a lot of the time when he does that, he goes back to lower minutes. You see here an 80-minute game, back to 58. An 80-minute game to 63, so that's not too bad, but an 80-minute game to 54 the next time round. So it's definitely a high chance that that can happen, especially with Kafusi and Rudolph and these types of players starting to play much better than they have been the last month or so. Murray, I have him as a better buy than McInnes, just obviously because if Murray does play the 80 minutes, that's when we're going to get him in his winning form, right? So in the lock position, if we can get him to that over his career, 64.7 when he plays 77 minutes. So a terrific average for someone priced at 50, and we know they can do terrific work. And when he's played big minutes here this season, he's gone 62, 52, 58, 40, unfortunately, in the 80 minutes with 5 missed tackles against the Panthers. So makes sense. And then the 83 last game with the line break, with the 54 tackles and 254 run meters. So that is by far the highest run meters he's ever had in that role. So I do think that'll drop a little bit for sure. But he's, they're raring to go and trying to get his team a couple of wins here to end the season, and not very highly owned. So Murray, a terrific purchase this week if you want to jump on and grab him at a price at a 50. Absolutely crazy and wild here that Angus Crichton is priced at 49, that a little bit under that of Cam Murray. But what we see with Crichton in recent history is some low scores, right? He's gone 40, 38, and 47 for the last 3 weeks. And that includes no tries, obviously. Just the one, end up with the 1 try assist in 22 and only got 38. So missed tackles are up, obviously, the last few weeks with tackle numbers being down. And they are winning matches fairly comfortably, or they're very high scoring. So defense has kind of gone out the window for the Roosters at this time, and that's ending up with lower tackle numbers. And if he's not in the attack himself, he's going for low. A chance of resting as well. Someone that is a really solid guy that could go nuts for you. We know he has big scores in him, as he saw through round 8, 9, 10, with 78 being his lowest score. Wild. But definitely comes with some risk as well. Getting into the outside backs now with the cheaper guys, and Karaz with the duel. A really awesome guy to have. I think he plays the last 3 games and he scores somewhere around the early 50s would be my call there on that one. A little bit up and down, obviously. So if you can get 170 in that 3 or 4 weeks would be cool. He went 45, 72, 45, 40, 73. So can you get lucky and get him at the right time? If you haven't owned him all year, like myself, definitely a fun one to look at. Britt Nickera at 689, priced at 49 there. We know that he has quality in him. The last 2 weeks have been 56 and 64. Scored tries in both of them. And the 2 weeks before that, he was in the 30s. So definitely has the upside, but definitely has the downside in 30s, which we've seen like 5 of them in a bit of a stretch, 3-month stretch here. Campbell, 678. Just showed his pedigree and what he can do last week after 2 low ones. And before that, he was 60s, basically, pretty regularly, high 50s, and then that 89 there with 11 goals against the Wars. But Roosters this week, I think, is a tougher one for him. I'm not expecting a massive score. He's got Newcastle and he's got Penrith, and if Penrith rest their players in that week, it'll be fine. But if they're resting around 26, then that'll be tough there for Campbell. So a solid guy to have, but not the be-all, end-all. Dan Gagai with the Knights. A really nice run here. Rabbitohs, Titans, Dolphins. He should play every game, and I think he should score really well. So 55 last week was good. Some high 30, 39, 39, 45, but an 80 before that. 73 in round 14. He definitely has these types of games in him when he does score tries. He just hasn't scored a lot of tries this year. And it happened last year as well. He was doing a lot of it in base and obviously assisted Dom Young. He's still getting the odd line breaks, which is good, but I think he should be able to score 2 or 3 tries. 2 tries, we'll say, in this last 3 games, which will get him a really nice 50-odd average there. For Lomax, similar boat. Does have that one tougher game against the Cronulla Sharks this week, but then Parramatta and Canberra, which I think he can do really well against. And scored last week of 61, was 60 before that. And if he can continue to score a try a game and average that, I think he'll be in the 50s, being as he's priced at 47 right now. No one on that one. That's good. Jerome Luai, 627. We've got 4 guys to go. With Jerome at the moment, we know that with Cleary out, he was absolutely dominant during that time. And you see here in 2024, it's a nice average here of 52.2. But it was that 5-game stretch there from round 11 all the way through to round 18 where he was in sublime form. 53, 95, 60, 66, and 52. So really good numbers in there on that front. If you take out the 30s and the 43 in the first 4, then he's up around that 60 average. Can we guarantee that? No. Do they have a nice run? Yes. Can we guarantee he's going to rest? No. So lots of questions, lots of maybes, as I said before with the Panthers guys, but no one owns him. So he'd be a really awesome point of difference type of play if he managed to get that 95 like he did against the Sharks, who are a pretty tough team. Olakau'atu, I'm not too excited about a 6-9 team, but he plays the Tigers this week, and we know that he could do well there in that one. But his last 3 games, he's gone 43, 39, and 31. And that 43 was a bailout try at the end when I owned him before he got that suspension. So if he could get back to anything like what he was doing at the start of the season, then that would be great. But, tackle break numbers are down. Missed tackle numbers are randomly there in round 23 with 4. Tackle numbers are down in general, and his run meters aren't great as well with the offload falling away. So it could come back this week, but then are you excited to have him for the Dogs and the Sharks? That's the big question. Dom Young at 606k. He has been sublime this year, averaging 46.1, and that includes a negative 12 in there, which is pretty wild, and 31 in 48 minutes. So a couple of error type games there, error and injury and send-off type games, which have cruelled him. But you're buying him basically in fantasy for the fact that he could score you a double or more like he did last week. Because before that, even scoring 1 try, he's somewhere in the 40s. But again, a nice run that they have. He could easily score a double in 2 of the 3 weeks. That's for sure. But Garrick's the finisher at 553. It's crazy how cheap he's gotten, but averaging 44. That does include all these head knock games, which is tough. And we know that when he plays the 80 against not as great teams, he can get a lot of goals in there and can score really well. And other times it doesn't happen. So last week he did get the try, but there were games before that head knock game. 53, 59, 69, 54, 44, 77, 66, 83. He definitely has the opportunity to do that. If you're trying to get up from a Blaze Talangi or something like that, then Garrick is a terrific pick this week. So I wish you guys all the best of luck with your thoughts around trades and where you're going with them. I hope this video helped. If you don't have any trades left and you've made it all the way to the end of this video, give me a little comment down below. You're an absolute legend. Let me know there and I'll give you a shout out there. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the next one.